Hey folks, welcome back to the program. This is Chris in Central Pennsylvania on the Appalachian Trail. This is a hiking trail that runs the entire almost length of the eastern United States from Maine in the north to Georgia in the south. I'm on the north side of the trail here in Pennsylvania, the north behind me there. And I just thought I'd come out here and share a little with you from the Minister for Trade, Industry, and Competition, Parks Tao. Better than his predecessor, but nonetheless, the guy's still a little bit lost and confused. So here we are with South Africa once again, not Parks Tao, but South Africa complaining that they're being targeted by the United States. That this nonsense about how, as if we're taking new actions, canceling military training here. That was done by the February 7th executive order. Canceling scientific research, done by the February 7th executive order. Canceling PEPFAR, done by all these things were a result of losing foreign aid. The knock-on effect is just across so many industries and so many aspects of South African life. Ungrateful South African politicians just either were ignorant or not paying attention or didn't care about how much money the American taxpayer was using to support and develop South Africa's society. But hey, the money's gone now, so now they're opening up their eyes and they're complaining of additional tax. They're not additional tax. Now here is something that will directly affect South Africa, and Parks Tao wants to take action. But my question to the Minister of Industry, Trade, and Competition, Mr. Parks Tao, why didn't you contact the Trump administration weeks ago? These tariffs that are being imposed on cars imported from abroad, 25%, taking effect here on April 3rd, and then for auto parts on May 3rd. This isn't news. This is something that's been going on for some time. Trump has promised to deliver these tariffs against countries, and that's just the nature of it. So here's the problem. South Africa relies on this extensively. 2/3, 64%, the 2/3 of all of the Africa growth and opportunity duty-free exports from South Africa into the U.S. market are from the automobile industry in South Africa. This affects BMW and Mercedes-Benz in particular. 25,553 vehicles exported to the United States in 2024. That's a significant portion of the total cars sold in all of South Africa. Over 25,000 shipped to the U.S., in addition to a lot of auto parts. Now, this does represent less than 1% of total U.S. car imports, about 0.99% of car imports, and just 0.27% of auto parts imported to the U.S. from abroad. But bear in mind, many of those cars that are imported to the U.S. are coming from Mexico and Canada, our neighbors, as part of the U.S.-Mexico-Canada Free Trade Agreement. It used to be NAFTA. So, yeah, the figure you're talking about is still an issue for the United States. But South Africa really isn't the target of these tariffs, but will be collateral damage. And that's unfortunate. If South Africa had a good diplomatic relationship with the United States, instead of an antagonistic approach to U.S. foreign policy, attacking us endlessly, then it would have been possible for Parks Tao to have had a phone call or a meeting already with members of Commerce or from the Treasury Department and or the Trump administration asking for an exemption. The Japanese Prime Minister is willing to come to the U.S. to meet with President Trump to get an exemption for Japanese car imports, and there's a lot of those. Well, that's much more likely to be successful than Parks Tao, because South Africa's arrogant, disrespectful, and rude treatment of the United States and its lies about America, and it's calling America, their ambassador calling America racist and calling Donald Trump the leader of a global white supremacist movement. These things have really put you in a bad spot, Minister Tao. So good luck with getting your meeting. I wish you luck. I hope you get it. I'd hate to see South Africa have to deal with 25% tariffs. But here's the thing. You'll be at no disadvantage to the Europeans. You'll be on a level playing field. You've had an artificial advantage for years because of the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act. We've let you in our marketplace with nothing in return, which is not a problem. But his argument going to the States is he wants to make the point, he wants to explain to the Americans that South Africa's vehicles and auto parts do not threaten the USA. No, they don't. But South Africa's behavior threatens the United States and threatens the United States' interests. And South Africa's behavior is inconsistent. While South Africa pretends to be carrying the moral compass in the high road over Gaza, where was South Africa over the Rohingya genocide in Myanmar when the Gambia took the first ever genocide case state to state to the ICJ? They were nowhere to be found. Where was South Africa when it came to the genocidal behavior of the Ethiopian armed forces in Tigray just a couple years ago? Where was South Africa over South Sudan? Where was South Africa? Yeah, they were there. They were evacuating their embassy employees, but they weren't doing anything for the South Sudanese. I know. I was involved in that operation from Entebbe. Where was South Africa over the Sahel? Where is South Africa over Somalia? Nowhere to be found. What about the Uyghurs in China? That's a genocide. South Africa is nowhere to be found. So they don't exactly have the moral high ground. So preaching about Gaza shows inconsistency here. And assaulting and attacking and insulting America's interests is not helpful. So to Minister Parks Tao, I agree. The AGOA access that you have is critically important for South Africa's industry and for a whole bunch of jobs, hundreds of thousands of jobs in total, 145,000 direct jobs, plus many more in the ancillary industries that support that. And it's also a benefication that's added to South Africa's economy. So you don't want to lose that AGOA artificial advantage that you have, and you certainly don't want a 25% tariff applied to your automobiles shipped to the States, because they just won't come here anymore. There'll be no advantage. It's cheaper to ship them from Europe or to build them in America than it is to ship them from South Africa. So that market will dry up and be devastating for South Africa. My issue with this, Minister Parks Tal, is where have you been? Where have you been? It's now April, and this is an event that began after Trump came in office a couple months ago. He announced these tariffs well over a month ago, and you're just now reaching out. Just now reaching out. This is problematic. It shows you how unserious the ANC is when it comes to diplomatic relations with foreign powers. Now, they run around saying that we are not going to play tit for tat and trade insults. Well, no one's trading insults. Trump is not calling South African names. Trump is not attacking South African politicians. It's Julius Malema who threatened Donald Trump's life and Elon Musk's life. It's South African politicians like Paul Mashatile and Sikalala from the National Executive Committee, even Ramaphosa himself saying we will not be intimidated, and others in your government who are attacking. It's only Thabo Mbeki that's sitting on the sidelines and mostly behaving himself and saying, hey, we need good relations. You need to knock it off. Really, it's not in your best interest. And coming and trying to lecture the Americans about how little your trade matters in the scheme of things is not really a way to win the argument. The better argument is that South Africa can be a good ally to the United States and work in U.S. national interests. South Africa can cooperate with the United States. South Africa sends products here, and as a consequence, we employ a lot of people. Our country would be grievously harmed by this, and we don't intend to harm U.S. interests. That would be a much better argument, rather than coming here and saying, hey, listen, our imports aren't that much. Why should you punish us? That's not going to float, my friend. Not going to float. So there you have it, folks. A little bit about what's going on. So Parks Tal, a bit late to the game. I'll tell you that the Japanese Prime Minister asking for a last-minute interview or a last-minute office call with President Trump versus the Minister of Trade, Industries, and Competition in South Africa asking for an office call with anybody in the U.S. government at this stage. Well, I think you're just a bit too late. I think Japanese have a much better chance of getting in to see Trump and getting those tariff exemptions in place. South Africa, well, I hope you get an exemption, but I wouldn't get too excited about it. So look for people in Pretoria and in the Eastern Cape to suddenly be jobless here very soon. And that's sad, very sad. And it's a direct consequence of South Africa's politicians' behavior and South Africa's media. Even today, more articles lying about America, lying about what's been happening, and misreporting and disinformation and misinformation, both mis and disinformation out there, lying about America. It's unfortunate. You want to act like you don't need America? Well, you're going to find out how much you need America. You're already discovering that. 70% of your scientific research funded by American taxpayers. Antiretrovirals only available because American pharmaceutical research and delivery of these expensive drugs, which we pay for research, you pay nothing, and then you get them at discounted rates. Plus the $8.1 billion given to you, the $20 billion plus in annual trade, which supports hundreds of thousands of jobs, the 600 American companies operating in South Africa, employing others. In addition to that, you've got dozens, if not hundreds of American companies employing South Africans remotely, providing jobs. If you keep pissing Trump off and you keep angering the United States, all that's going to be disappearing. In the meantime, good luck keeping the 25% tariff off of your auto exports to America and your auto parts exports to America. I wish you luck. Cheers.